and what they bring to the table, and there's been some high praise about these guys. We're going to talk about what their role is this year, and we're also talking to our draft expert, Fran Duffy, to get the inside scoop on UDFA's look ahead to next season and talk about this draft class, and it all starts now. Wake up and stop sleeping. It's DNVR Broncos Podcast time. We're going to talk about the sleeper of the draft today, and there's no more sleeping on him. And we're going to do it on the DNVR Broncos Podcast live from the Toyota Lounge, driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores inside the DNVR Bar, where we're not sleeping today because we've brought in a doctor. Dr. Dre, Andre Simone joining Zach Stevens today. We got you here, and Dion behind the camera. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great. How are you doing, Big Z?
You know, I'm doing good. I think we were talking before the show. Just for some reason today, felt a little sleepy, but can't be sleepy on this show, especially when we're talking about maybe my body knew that we were talking about a sleeper in the draft, and it was like we need to be prepared for this by being a little sleepy today. But can't sleep when I'm with you. But the weather's kind of bummy out.
It's a little weather, sleepy weather, yeah, and it's all these days where it's like, oh, there's a Nuggets playoff game tonight. It's all like calm before the storm.
Yep, exactly. Saving up that energy, man. Nuggets, let's keep this craziness going. I mean, every road team has won so far. Nuggets on the road again tonight. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, what a fun playoffs. You feel a little bit like when your wife is out of town having your regular co-host gone?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's a little like, oh, we get to play. Yeah. It's like when Brandon's out the office, everything's a little more loose and goofy.
And, I see you wearing the DNVR Broncos sweatshirt. Man, those colors are spot on. You've got the old school Nuggets hat on to celebrate tonight.
Yep.
I've got the Rockies, not to support them. Although Henry told me yesterday they were on a 2-game win streak. They might have blown that yesterday, but
I'm sure they
wow, I guess riding the hot team in town. No, I guess the Nuggets are on a 2-game win streak as well right now. But honestly, I'm wearing this because it's raining out, and this is my raincoat. So
yep, that's a good call by you. Good.
So
call.
How you doing? I'm happy to have you.
I'm doing great. Yep. Few know, but Zach, you're an original my guy.
Yeah.
I just like the segments you have done leading up to drafts. I can't claim you as one of my guys because we're in a hot Zach summer, like you have expanded to the world. You get quote tweeted by Dov Kleiman, who's trash, by the way. That shouldn't be an accomplishment in any way. But you're big time. So I can't claim you as my guy, much like Henry can't claim Travis Hunter or Ashton Genty as my guy. You're too mainstream.
Thank you for bringing that up.
The few times we get to do this, true pleasure.
I absolutely love it. And there's no better time to have you, Andre, because you can talk anything beyond just Broncos and football, but to dive into the day 3 guys, and I guess we're mixing day 2 and day 3, but some of those back half of the draft guys is the sicko conversation. It's when you know more about these guys than 99% of people, 100% of people out there. And so there's no better time to talk about these guys than with you on the show. And today, we're going to focus on a guy that actually slid in to day 2, Sai'vion Jones and Q Robinson, 2 new Broncos.
Yep.
And I think we're going to come out of this conversation, or I think I'm going to come out of this conversation. I'm curious where you are, with much higher expectations for these guys. Maybe not year 1, but down the line, because I don't know, Dre, maybe this is just me, but when these Broncos draft picks were made, to me, they kind of were received by the fan base as like, okay, 5th, 6th round guys, we'll see if they provide anything. No, the Broncos traded up into the third round to get into the back of the third round before that day 2 ended to get Sai'vion Jones. That's a day 3 pick. That's a Draymond Jones, a Justin Simmons. Like, those are dudes. A Zach Allen. Those are dudes. And then Q Robinson, the Broncos, through one of many trades, ended up kind of trading up to get him in the 4th round as well. So I'm excited to talk about these guys because I think these are guys that we need to focus on, whether it's this year or next year. And let's start, well, 2 SEC guys. Let's start with the one that wears the wrong colors, LSU's Sai'vion Jones. Like I said, Broncos, it seemed like in the draft room they were, clapping at the end of day 2. It seemed like they were done. Nope. They move up to get him at 101 in the draft, almost a top 100 pick. Dre, tell us about Sai'vion.
Yeah, a guy who's a very, very interesting profile. He played at LSU 5 years, I want to say, but is only 21, was a top 150 recruit, stayed at LSU through and through, started in his final 2 years, so has almost 30 starts in the SEC to his name. And a really interesting profile because when you look at all the numbers, and Dion, you could bring that up, that link I sent you on Slack.
Oh, love this. Coming prepared.
The RAS comp is fairly similar to a Shamar Stewart, who went top 20 to the Bengals and was one of the highest upside defensive linemen in the entire class. They're both 6'5". They're both super long. Sai'vion has him by 13 pounds, which is where you will see the slight differences in, the running and explosiveness, but that's a trade-off. That's why it's a relative athletic comparison, right? The athleticism is relative to your size and weight. So, and then you look at the conventional stats. Shamar Stewart in the SEC, 5.5 tackles for a loss last season. Sai'vion 7.5. Shamar 1.5 sacks. Sai'vion 4.5. You look at the advanced stats on PFF, right? Where they have hurries, pressures, that kind of stuff. Well, Shamar had 33 hurries in the SEC last season, and Sai'vion had 32. So, I mean, they are just in a lot, very comparable, very comparable. Both impressed at the Senior Bowl. I think Shamar, you could argue more, especially in one-on-ones. So that all, I didn't realize some of those factors coming into the Sai'vion evaluation.
No.
Where, full disclosure, he was like, there were 2 edge rushers coming out of LSU. He was the one who was ranked a little lower for me. And here you can see the RAS. Keep scrolling and we'll get that comp. So there they are side by side. Shamar Stewart has a perfect 10. But, he doesn't get the bench, which is really the only red on Sai'vion's side of things. He gets a 9.2.
So if you would take away Sai'vion's bench because you took it away, not you, but they took it away for Shamar since he didn't do it. I mean, we might be looking at like a 9.8.
100%. And what I think really stands out, Zach, Shamar Stewart, 10 athletic, right? RAS, size is insane. Look, everything's green. The most noteworthy of all these measurables to me for a defensive lineman is the 10-yard split from the 40. Shamar runs a 4.59. Sai'vion runs a 4.75, which again, considering the weight difference, pretty impressive. 10-yard splits, 1.58 from Shamar, 1.59 from Sai'vion, which again, sub 1.6 at 280 pounds is stupid. I mean, I just, people like that, they're not the same. We are both human beings. We are not the same species. Like, what, are you kidding me? So it's, I didn't realize it was that type of athletic profile. Because when you watch him, he tries so hard. The motor is what stands out more than anything. As is the pursuit, running down plays. I mean, you see that 40 shows up in his ability to run guys down lateral, run guys down, turn backwards. Even though he's playing at that size, and I think the appeal for the Broncos is more as an interior rusher, especially on money downs, on obvious passing downs. He's playing plenty as a stand-up edge at LSU, you know, and doing just fine in space. He is longer than God. I mean, just like limbs everywhere. He does. You wouldn't guess watching the tape. He's 280 pounds.
Yeah.
And bless you, by the way. You would. It can when he closes on plays. Those long limbs are like chopping down on the ball. He's a threat to get it out. He's tipping passes. The Broncos added at least 3 guys who can be real threats to block kicks now in Q, Leonard, and Sai'vion.
Yep.
And he doesn't look as explosive or athletic as he is, as those measurables would prove, because he's so long-limbed. I think it takes a smidge for him to kind of get going. And some of that might be that he's just got edge contain, so it's not pin your ears back and get after it. And I think that 10-yard split is comforting that while maybe on tape I don't always see the most explosive guy, he's got that in his bag. He's also got power, especially as a run defender, which I think is the big appeal to him. You know, he's bigger than Dondre Tillman, who's like just 6'2", 270, I think he was listed, but 6'5", 280.
Yeah.
So as that defensive end, edge rusher, he's going to be pretty reliable as a run defender on obvious rundowns. The fit is then, you know, on obvious rundowns, you don't want him playing inside,
right?
Where I think he's so long, it's hard to win leverage battles,
right?
And vice versa, you don't want him outside when it's time to rush the passer, because I think he's more efficient at 280 pounds being able to rush up the middle.
Right.
Hank has an amazing clip in his film room, which are so good this year.
Yeah.
Where he gets Gray Zabel at the Senior Bowl in like 11-on-11 practice was Zabel as the left guard going up against the left guard. So, you know, I mean, right there as a 3 technique, something like that. Maybe a 4-eye. And so he's got a lot of appealing traits. That LSU team was so weird. He doesn't have much behind the line of scrimmage production in the final 7 games. So you wonder what really happened.
Yeah.
You like the sum of his parts. You like the upside and the physical profile. You just wish he would have been more dominant, you know? And it feels very much like one of those Jonathan Cooper bets. You know, like Coop was buried in a really deep Ohio State defensive line who produced a ton of NFL guys. It's like, okay, we're going to gamble on this guy, see what he's got. You know, he's already been in this part-time role. Can he keep improving and shine more? And we always touched on it on the draft pod of the bigger edges, right? Like you've got Jonah, Elliss, you've got Nik Bonitto. I don't know that all these fun, undersized edge rushers in this class really fit the Broncos. But the bigger guys like a Sai'vion, like a Q Robinson, were appealing. I don't think we ever got down the line enough to talk about Sai'vion and Q, but I'm really intrigued by him. I see why I forget who in the post-pick press conference, which of the Paytons said 15 picks before our pick, we kind of started to think, oh, it's odd this guy's still around.
Right, right.
So they jumped on it, and they get him at the end of day 2, and with JFM's contract up in a year, and Dondre Tillman playing such a crucial role in the wild card, I think he's going to be a bigger immediate contributor, and it's nice he has that pedigree to do that, and it's nice he has the pedigree to assume there should be more in the tank there. There should be more to build on.
Dre, I said 9 minutes ago that I think I was going to come out of this episode higher on both of these guys, Sai'vion and Q. In 2 minutes, you already made me so much more excited about Sai'vion. I cannot believe everything you just said. Like, how was this guy not right there behind Shamar Stewart? How was he not a round 2 pick? This is insane. You brought so much to the table, and it really goes in line with what I heard behind the scenes from the Broncos of why they really liked him. We'll dive into that, but first we got to get to our guy, Fran Duffy, and before we do that, I think I just heard a little jingle from our friends. Was that Empire today? It was, because
sitting on the floor right now.
Exactly. We are sitting on this amazing floor from Empire today. I kid you not, we had another floor in here, I think 2 years ago, and it was a hazard. I mean, and it was not from Empire Today. We've had this floor in here from Empire Today. Maybe that speaks to how we treat the floor, but maybe we're pretty tough on the floor. We've had this floor in for 2 years, looks brand new. That's the quality that you're going to get from Empire Today. And on top of that, Empire Today is going to hook you up with $350 off your floors when you use the code DNVR over at empiretoday.com/DNVR. You're also going to get a free in-home estimate because things are better at home. We talk about how there's no home court advantage in the NBA second round right now. Every road team has won. Not with Empire. You're going to get that home floor advantage. You're going to win every single day when you get Empire Today. And use that code DNVR. Our listeners receive $350 discount when they use that promo code DNVR. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/DNVR for full details.
Bring that camera to me, Dion, because we got to talk about our good friends at Toyota. Boy, Toyota, what a great... We just said Sai'vion Jones. Toyota really the Sai'vion Jones of cars, trucks, SUVs, because yes, they're reliable, but then they've also got that extra upside to them, that extra size and speed that Sai'vion brings to the table, but also phenomenal family car. Anyone at DNVR can tell you how much they love their Toyotas. Those who drive Toyotas around our office swear by them. Their customer service, like when Ryan got stuck on 36 and he just called their line and they took care of him. Or Adam Mares and how, his family got in an accident in their Toyota. And thank God it was a Toyota because it was a terrible accident. Everyone feeling great, though. It's the Sai'vion Jones. And I think there's some day two value that could play up there. Also, this kind of weather, forget about it. Toyota's the car for you. Perfect Colorado car to get lost in the mountains. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial. Corwin Toyota in Boulder. Groove Toyota in Littleton. Mountain States Toyota in Denver. Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora. Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. That's Yaya and I's hood. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL and the official vehicle of DNVR. Let's go places.
And let's go out to Philadelphia to talk to our guy, Fran Duffy, the franchise. Let's bring him in. Make sure you're giving him a follow at FDuffyNFL over on Twitter X. Fran, how you doing? Two weeks. Are you recovered yet from the draft?
No, I mean, Zach, Trey, you know how this goes. It's been, look, I was the week after the draft, it was a lot of like undrafted free agency. So all the teams in the ALLCITY network, like, all right, these guys that I haven't watched yet, let me just kind of buzz through. I'm not doing the thorough scouting reports that I did for all these other players, but let me just buzz through. Hey, you know what? Let me watch all of Joaquin Davis's targets. Things like that, where it's like, all right, let me just kind of get a taste for what this player can be. And then last week, starting to dive into, what is the 2026 landscape starting to look like? I haven't studied any of these players yet, but who are the names that we're going to be talking about? Who's the first up? Who's first order of business once the film study starts, honestly, next week or the next few days. So I'm excited to dig into that, but figured I'd get a too early mock draft out as well. So no, the rest hasn't happened yet, but that'll come soon.
The just sicko stuff, and it fits right into this show, joined by Andre and myself. Fran, that is just incredible, and that's what you get over at thednvr.com. That's what you get with ALLCITY, especially Fran is bringing it. Like you said, Fran, you dropped a way too early mock draft over at thednvr.com, and it's so fun because just reading these guys, you know some of the names, but some of the guys in the back half, like the Broncos are, you get to find out a little about. And what direction did you have the Broncos going with this way too early mock, and why was it not a big time like playmaker wide receiver?
Yeah, I ended up going with a defensive lineman just because there was a lot of buzz, behind the scenes that the Broncos could potentially go defensive line early on in the draft. Obviously, they went Sai'vion Jones on day 2, but I thought, let's give them one of these defensive linemen because it looks like next year's class, again, couch it with the fact that I have not done deep dives on most of these players that are in this mock, but there's a lot of positivity brewing on a lot of these interior defensive linemen, a lot of these edge rushers. It seems like there's a lot of combo skill sets, a lot of guys that have that Zach Allen type of skill set where, hey, you know what, they're a bigger body, they can line up on the edge, can maybe kick inside. And so I ended up going with the kid from Auburn that has gotten a lot of buzz, and that's Keldrick Falk, who, just kind of going through, just watching a handful of his pressures, just go as I was getting ready to just write a quick blurb on him. He's got some juice. He's got some mismatch capability. Again, he's someone that has lined up against tackles, guards, and centers. So I think that multifaceted skill set would play well. He would be a player that I think would make some sense there for the Denver Broncos. Again, before the deep dive is done, that was like, all right, if I want to give the Broncos defensive lineman, Falk has a skill set I think that they might like.
Let's talk some skill positions in 2026, Fran. Starting with the star running back in this class, Jeremiah Love, the sophomore out of Notre Dame, incoming junior, I suppose, who was stellar during that playoff run.
Yep.
How good, how high do you think this kid could go in next year's class?
Yeah, I think we're talking, as of now, and again, without doing the deep dive, it feels like middle of the first round. It seems like he is a first round quality talent. Basically what my plan is, Dre, is that as I study a lot of these players over the course of the next couple of months, as we get closer to the start of college football season, I'll have my first big board, and I'll also have my first, another early mock draft. And that should be a little bit closer to where I've got true opinions on these players. But I would say at first blush, Jeremiah Love looks like a first-round player. Yeah. He was the horse for that Notre Dame offense. He was the guy that they funneled everything through. And what was so impressive, you mentioned the college football playoff run. I mean, he was not 100%. I don't know that he was 80%, during that playoff run. When you look at the injuries that he sustained late in the regular season, he really tried to gut it out for that team. But if he had been 100% healthy, who knows? They may have been able to make some noise there in the title game.
Friend, very understandably so, you have not done a deep dive on next year's class over 350 days out from now. And I believe sources tell me the reason why is because you've been grinding on this Broncos UDFA tape more than any other UDFAs in the All-City network. Why is that? Is it because it's intriguing, this class? What stands out to you about this Broncos UDFA class?
Well, it was honestly, Zach, it was the volume. Because look, the Eagles they had a 10-player draft class, so they signed 8 guys after the draft, and a couple of them I already knew. So I got to watch 6 players. Let me buzz through 6 guys. I get to all right, Dallas. There was a handful. I think Dallas had Chicago had a handful, Arizona, and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get to Denver. It was 15 names. I'm like, oh, George, Sean, you guys are killing me here. Now, what I found to be interesting, though, is as I was going through the undrafted classes for some of these other teams in the All-City Network, and I think it's reflective of this class in general that, usually when I start looking around at undrafted free agency classes, there's a handful of those, diamond in the rough, 6'4", 220 pounds, and he ran a 4.3 at the pro day, but no one knows who he is, and he had 18 targets in his career, right? There's a handful of those profiles. Looking around, in this year's class, undrafted free agency, there just weren't a lot of them until I got to Denver, and there were a few guys that was oh, here's the intriguing athletic profile. Here's the guy that's got some upside. You could see him make some plays in camp. So Denver, I would say, again, it could just be the fact that they brought in 15 names, so there was a bigger pond to fish from, but they had more intriguing athletic profiles than some of the other teams that I did.
Well, don't tease us. Give us a couple names.
Well, I'll start. I mentioned I kind of teased him earlier, and that's Joaquin Davis from NC Central. This is a guy 6'4", 194 pounds, got 33-inch long arms. So good looking kid, absolutely looks the part. Goes to his pro day. He runs 4.36 with a 42-inch vertical leap. So this is a truly explosive athlete with long speed. You go back and you watch him, and you're like, okay, I see why this kid went undrafted. There's a lot of drops over the course of his career. Just kind of looking through the numbers, but then just uncoordinated at the catch point, still a little bit rusty. As a route runner, not quite there where you would need him to be. So that's why this guy goes undrafted. But honestly, the thing that gives me a lot of faith that he could potentially stick, because that's the other thing too. When I see height, weight, big time physical profile, going to Sean Payton, I'm like, okay, these are guys that typically had stuck, not just in Denver, but also during his time in New Orleans. So right away, my ears perked up as soon as I saw that height, weight, speed profile. But then I go and I'm like, oh, he's played a ton of special teams. Oh, he's a good blocker. I'm like, okay, there to me, like there is a profile here for a guy that could make some noise this summer and potentially make this 53. And so, obviously, look, there's a lot that's got to happen between now and then, but that was a profile certainly that caught my eye. But there were a couple other guys as well. I mean, Clayton Webb, he was a player, an offensive lineman that I thought had a good shot at getting drafted. Honestly, I'm not really sure why he didn't get drafted. It wasn't a great interior offensive line class this year. And Webb was a player that he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, goes to Georgia, ends up at Jacksonville State after a couple of years where he's a backup. I thought he was physical. I thought he was powerful. He goes to the Senior Bowl. He had a good week down there. I was surprised that he didn't get drafted. I don't know if it was just because of the lack of length. He had sub 32-inch arms, but this is a former state champion wrestler. There's plenty of pedigree there. I thought that was a really intriguing addition there for the Denver Broncos as well.
Yeah, he made your all Senior Bowl team, and he was like a top 50 recruit in the country, and his power profile is different from anything else the Broncos have at center in that room. He was playing, left guard at Jacksonville State? I forget if it was right or left guard.
Left guard, right, yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's got some real power to him. What about, did you go back and watch some Johnny Walker, the Missouri edge rusher?
Johnny Walker.
It's crazy. The Broncos drafted 2 SEC edge rushers. Neither had the production as a pass rusher that Johnny did with the Tigers last year.
Yeah, I mean, he was second team All SEC. Now he did it under 6'3", under 246 pounds. So he tested, and he didn't test great. Like 4.82 in the 40-yard dash, 1.72 10-yard split, 7.69 3-cone. Like these are really poor numbers, but they are like extremely poor when you're under 250, right? So when you look across the board, like his short shuttle, vertical leap, they were all really, so this guy he's small, did not test well. So that's why he falls out of the draft. Now, he can get off the snap well in terms of like timing of the snap, good understanding of what his limitations are. Like when you watch his overall rush plan, Dre, like I thought that he was a pretty skilled player, good flashes at the top of the rush in terms of being able to use his hands and take the corner in that way. Plays with a good motor, so he's always around the football. Is that enough to carry him, right? Like sometimes that is enough for players and sometimes it's not. The comparison I made, and it's like, obviously, like if you squint, because honestly, when I'm doing the undrafted free agent studies, guys, like I'm not doing the thorough deep dives because at the end of the day, you're hoping like, all right, if I squint, like what is the path to this guy making it? What is the trait that can allow this player to make the 53-man roster? I'm like, all right, like who are some guys that have this physical profile that excelled in Denver? And I'm like, oh yeah, like Elvis Dumervil is a player where it's like he was undersized, maybe wasn't like the best athlete in the world. He fell into day 3 of the draft coming out of Louisville, and he, obviously ended up having a great career. This would be probably like a 1% outcome here for Johnny Walker, but that's the type of like physical profile, and that's what he needs to kind of be. That it could be that he's just a non-NFL caliber athlete, and he just does not have the physical tools to make it. We'll find out as he takes the field this summer.
I absolutely love that. Fran, 1% chance he's Elvis Dumervil, but I love that you brought Dumervil up, just a legend here in Broncos country. Sai'vion Jones, I want to ask you about him because Dre brought some great comparisons just about how statistically, physically, he's almost Shamar Stewart, who went in the first round. But Sai'vion fell to pick 101. Broncos trade up in the third round in order to get him there. Why did he fall? Because the more I look into him, the more I'm like, holy cow, this guy, he's kind of the opposite of Johnny Walker. He has all of the physical tools to be a first, second round sort of pick. And my expectations, maybe not this year because he's young and raw, but for the future, are that he should be a starter. And in fact, he could be like a plus starter in this league. Why would a guy like that fall?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of it, the lack of production profile that you alluded to, the lack of a complete athletic profile. I mean, he was on Bruce Feldman's freak list previously, like early on in his career back in 2023. I didn't think that we always saw that athleticism show up on tape. Now, to keep in mind, like this is a bigger body, right? So 6'5", 280, he's not going to look as explosive off the ball as some of these other players. But I think when you're looking at his overall, his size and his length, that is something that was certainly going to intrigue teams. But what I worried about was, okay, this is a guy that I didn't think on film showed to be like a great athlete. I didn't think he was overly skilled as a rusher. And then just in the run game, the inconsistencies. So I think that's what kept him from going a little bit higher in the draft. Again, like there's just for a guy as big and as physically imposing as he was, I just wanted to see a little bit more consistency from a technique standpoint, certainly from a lot of finishing issues on ball carriers. But that's why, honestly, comparing him to Shamar Stewart, that's a lot of the same things I said about Shamar Stewart. Right. Now, you're talking to somebody that was not super high on Shamar Stewart, so like him, like he should have been closer to where Sai'vion Jones. In my mind, like that's kind of where I would have felt more comfortable with a Shamar Stewart. But it is an interesting comparison for sure.
All right, Fran, you're helping us build the franchise.
Legend.
We appreciate all of the insight that you bring. And as Edward Wright in the Toyota chat says, great interview with Fran. It's very informative. And Fran, you are the best with giving us all of the info on these draft picks and the non-draft picks, the undrafted guys. Thank you. Hopefully you get some rest this coming week. If not, probably not. We hopefully soon, though, Fran. We really appreciate all your insight.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks,
Man,
Fran.
Great to catch up with Fran. Man, so many guys and so much information, as Edward in the Toyota chat said right there. But I want to dive back into Sai'vion Jones because, Dre, you just crushed it with information. I kind of want to pick that apart and get to know Sai'vion and
let's do it.
Hugh a little more after I give a shout out to our friends over at Raising Cane's. Dre, how does a Flavor Fest sound?
Sounds amazing.
Well, that's what Raising Cane's has got going on. How about this? Hand-battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy crinkle-cut fries, buttery Texas toast, and secret cane sauce that is made in restaurant every single day. You ready for lunch yet?
Sounds like that's what we go to Cane's for, right?
Man, that sounds so good. And as our guest Alex Singleton said yesterday, you got to get 2 pieces of the Texas toast to put all of this together to make it the sandwich. And you can do that yourself over at Raising Cane's, where they've got the Flava Flavs faves going on.
Wow.
And yes, I know who Flava Flav is, and they just have all that flavor over at Raising Cane's. Yeah, Henry questioned me on it yesterday, and I was like, of course I know.
It's right in your wheelhouse.
I should say I've heard the name. I've heard of his name.
He had a moment when, we were in our 20s.
Yeah.
So that helped.
Exactly. So what are you waiting for? It's Cane's o'clock, Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love.
Yep. And a shout out to true OGs, the tastiest of beers. Check out Breck Brew, their new West Coast style IPA Ridge Runner. This double dry hop brew is inspired by the untamed beauty of Colorado's trails and creates notes of bright citrus and pine. Everyone at DNVR has their favorite Breck Brew. Some are an Avs Amber Ale. Others are in on the Mile High City Copper. You might be a Broncos Country Pale Ale guy.
Of course.
Or a Fun Slinger. Always love a good Fun Slinger. And don't forget about their Good Company hard seltzers. They've got it all. Tasty, delicious. Breckenridge Brewery. Check out the beer locator at breckbrew.com to find a beer near you and tell them DNVR sent you.
And sorry, Dre.
No, that's it.
Shout out to everyone tuning in the Toyota chat. Hit us with a thumbs up. A lot of comments, not a lot of thumbs up. Let's smash those thumbs up. Let's show Fran the love. Let's show Dre the love. Let's show Dion and Yahir the love. And Yahir wants to get in on the conversation. Before the show, he was like, Sai'vion Jones reminds me of Trey Hendrickson. And a lot of times, you compare everyone compares everyone to the best players, in the game right now. And Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks last year.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, come on, Yahir, let's calm down a little bit. And it's like, well, actually, let's take a look at this. Yahir just reached out again and said, well, Trey Hendrickson drafted 103 overall to Sean Payton. And on the other end, you have Sai'vion Jones drafted 101 to Sean Payton. And you look at the physical tools, and Dre, everything you said about Sai'vion Jones just makes me think like he is the future. Now, Trey Hendrickson, 17 and a half sacks. I'm not sure. The Broncos did not go defensive line in the first round, which would have been so bad for John Franklin Myers wanting an extension. I think this Sai'vion Jones pick is really bad for John Franklin Myers wanting an extension. Henry and I talked about it yesterday for a second, just about like you can't pay everyone on the team. You hope to get to a point as an organization, just like Sean Payton did with Trey Hendrickson, where it's like, man, we've drafted too many good players that some of them have to go. And you see the 49ers get so many comp picks because they do that. Trey Hendrickson, Sean Payton wanted to keep him in New Orleans, but just knew he wasn't going to be able to pay everyone because Trey Hendrickson was part of that loaded draft class. Well, you might be getting to that point now with the Broncos. You just paid DJ Jones. You're going to have to pay Zach Allen more. You're paying Pat Surtain. You're paying 2 safeties. Now you're paying Dre Greenlaw. You're paying Alex. Like, at some point, okay, something's got to give.
Yeah.
Well, the more I learn about Sai'vion Jones, it's like, man, he really could be that replacement for JFM next year. And the good thing is, like, he's a raw player. He's got all the physical tools raw. He doesn't need to be the day one starter this year.
Yep.
It's more so looking to 2026, and I still think he could provide something this year. But, man, if I'm JFM, I think this draft pick is bad because I think it's a really good draft pick.
Yeah, for sure. I also wonder, how much did they feel the need to have a little Jonathan Cooper insurance? Since Cooper is kind of the only edge in that mold, right? The other option is stand-up JFM, or Tillman. So now you get a little more competition in the room, and I think Q Robinson's the similarly bigger edge who provides some Cooper insurance so that, if Cooper were to miss a week or two here or there, you're not stuck just playing undersized edge rushers in his spot.
Where do you think Sai'vion profiles the most? Is he in the defensive line room or is he in the outside linebackers room?
It's interesting because I think the real answer is on first and second down, he's probably more of an outside linebacker in this scheme.
Wow.
On third down, he's more part of the defensive line room. I think long term, if you wanted a 3-down role, it's probably as a 3-down lineman in that JFM role, as a 5 technique defensive end in the 3-man front. But if you're in sub package and you're playing 4 guys hands in the ground, it kind of depends on what down and distance we're in. Is it an obvious passing or not? Because that's where it depends on where you're going to put Sai'vion, where you're going to line up Sai'vion, I think.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. And just to have that versatility, and this is just such a Sean Payton and George Payton draft pick. I mean, it's just the Bill Parcells. It's like, let's build up the trenches, even though the trenches are great right now. I mean, Broncos are one of the best teams against the run.
Coming.
They were the best pass rush team. Yeah, keep it coming. You can never have enough of those guys. So I actually am thrilled with what Sai'vion Jones brings. And Dre, from what I heard behind the scenes in the Broncos war room from the Broncos, were 2 things that you pointed to. So are you in the Broncos war room?
I wish.
Yeah, it seems like you might be, because the 2 things that really stood out to them about Sai'vion and why they thought, like, why is this guy still here? He's way better than a 3rd-round pick, especially the end of a 3rd-round pick. 2 things is his body is everything you want in a pass rusher, a defensive line, a front 7 player. He's a perfect length. He's a perfect size to do whatever you want to do with him. And then the second thing that you pointed to, his motor is 110% every single play.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll get a very athletic guy fall.
Yes.
Because the motor's not there. James Pierce Jr. A year ago from today, he was supposed to be like the top pick in the draft.
For sure.
Or if the top non-quarterback picked.
Yeah.
And there's some questions about his love for his game, his motor on the field.
Sure, man.
And he falls to, 27 or something like
26,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, 26. And Sai'vion, no questions about that. And, man, you bring that effort in, and that's something that just shines through on the tape.
I mean, that's the interesting thing about this draft in general, I think, and it's maybe why some of the media consensus isn't necessarily all aboard. The way the Broncos see upside in these prospects isn't the more conventional upside profiles you usually go after, where it's like, oh, they've got the measurables, but it's a character or effort concern, It's like, no, these guys check that off. Another common theme is all these guys stuck it out at the same place.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's almost rare to find a prospect who hasn't transferred at least once. Especially at quarterback. It's kind of the norm. Like everyone's been at 2 stops, but Jahdae Barron sticks it out for 5 seasons at Texas, and by his 5th season is their star outside corner. Same with Sai'vion and Q. You know, Pat Bryant slowly but surely is role increased every single year. RJ Harvey stayed at UCF that whole time and is the rare senior running back, right? So yeah, all those guys have that in common. Leonard didn't just transfer schools; he switched sports. So a bit of a unique case.
Not gonna blame him.
Yeah. But
Jeremy
yeah,
Crawshaw switched from Australian to American.
Right. That's another sports change. So no, I mean, they're kind of going after these safer profiles, but then you're finding that upside in other areas. I mean, I think it's interesting that one of the things Fran's saying about the Sai'vion Jones profile is similar to some of the things Fran and others have said about the Jahdae Barron profile, which is like, I know he tested really well, but you don't always see that on tape necessarily, or rather, Barron, the question was more the true speed, because he's always playing off coverage and kind of analyzing and reading the ball instead of just running with guys. And Sai'vion, as I described him, he's so long, he almost doesn't seem like he's moving that fast or explosively. And then the combine workouts surprise you, similar to Barron's 4.39 might have surprised a lot of people. Or the reverse is Pat Bryant having all those big plays and a really good yard per reception at Illinois and being a big play weapon, but then only running a 4.61, you know?
Right.
So it's like properly kind of balancing those things.
100%. And Dre, that you talk about upside, and man, my head goes to Q Robinson, the Broncos' next draft pick in the 4th round. Broncos go with Alabama edge rusher, linebacker. I don't know what you want to call him, because he can line up all over the place.
Special teams ace.
Kind of the issue, not the issue with him, why he fell is because he didn't line up much. I mean, less than 400 defensive snaps in his entire college career, but the upside is there. This is a guy, he went to Alabama. He was an edge rusher at Alabama, which means, one, he had to be incredibly talented coming out of high school to be an edge rusher at playing at Alabama, recruited by Nick Saban, playing for Nick Saban. And obviously the regime changed, but he stayed there his entire career. But then you look and you say, okay, well, Alabama's turning out, the 2nd overall pick in Will Anderson at edge rusher 2 years ago. So there's going to be a lot of talent that he has to sit behind. And he sat there and just waited. He was a special teamer for 3 seasons before his senior season when he got out on the field. And then he suffered an injury about midway through the season, which caused him to miss the entire rest of the season. He did tell us after the draft he's 100% healthy after having surgery. I believe it was a pec or a quad or something like that? I think it was one of those injuries.
It's an upper body, armor type thing. Yeah.
But that hurt him a lot, because it's like, well, we've only seen half a year of film on this guy. Are we really going to use a day 2 or a 1st-round pick? Every team in the NFL clearly said no to that. But the upside on Q Robinson, man, it is there. When you look at the measurables, they're there. When you look at the small production he was able to have, man, when you watch the film, he jumps off the screen.
Yeah, 100%. He's an older guy who was a top 56, I see on 247. So the 56th prospect in the country, the 4th best outside linebacker in his recruiting class. Alabama kid, Birmingham, who stays in Bama. So similar to Sai'vion's, a Louisiana kid, LSU. So I wonder how much culture shock there might be coming out to Denver that first couple of years, you know. Always staying in one place. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, days like this will suck. And he's one of those edge rushers where the thing that impresses me most about Q is everything he does outside of rushing the passer. How fluidly he moves sideline to sideline, how fluidly he can drop into coverage. What a sound like run defender who doesn't overrun things, who can use his power and length and size to stay in running lanes. Good motor, good pursuit, asked to do everything and doing it at a high level. Like his special teams efforts, like I've seen snaps of him Hail Mary drill. And he, instead of being one of the guys rushing the passer, is one of the guys back in the end zone, just as that extra defender to play the tip drill, to use that size and speed. He's a guy, he's a football player. He's a malleable football player that's still kind of figuring out the rest of his game. But then when you look at the advanced stats, only 108 pass rush snaps last season, 10 hurries out of that.
Yeah.
So, that's like a 10% right there, which is pretty high end. And then I don't know if you want to play that clip, because that everything I like, you then add to some of the pass rush upside and profile there, and it's quite intriguing. So yeah, there's a lot to like there too.
There's a lot to like, and we'll get to that clip in just a second. But before we do, want to give a shout out to the place we're in right now, the DNVR Bar.
Yes, sir.
Where if you want the best experience to watch tonight's Nuggets game against the Thunder, it's right here. If you don't want to spend a couple $100s on tickets for Friday and Sunday nights or Sunday afternoons game when the Nuggets are in town, you come to the DNVR Bar, where I promise you it is going to be the coolest environment outside of Ball Arena, but maybe even just include Ball Arena. It's the coolest environment that you're going to have to watch a playoff game, specifically with the Nuggets. And if you're a diehard, you're going to get a little bit off your tab at the bar. If you're a diehard, you're going to get all of our content. Dre talked about it earlier. Henry's been doing some great film breakdowns on every single Broncos draft pick. I think next week he might go sicko mode and do an undrafted film room.
He loves nothing more than the undrafted breakdowns.
Goodness,
They're his favorite.
Yeah, he obviously went to Mexico today. He's like, I got to get this Caleb Lohner one out yesterday. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to get that. You're going to benefit off that if you become a diehard with us. And we've got the intro sale going on right now over at DNVR.com. It also includes a free t-shirt of your choice, which there's new t-shirts out pretty much every single week.
I'm wearing the peanut butter and jelly one. It is so nice. It's just amazing.
Yep. And so become a diehard. It also supports us. We really appreciate it as well. And we'd love to see you at the bar over this next, let's hope, many weeks of Nuggets playoff.
Damn straight. Run. Saturday was insane. The vibes were incredible. For like an hour, this place was like happiest place on earth type stuff. It was nuts, Zach. The happy places my mind was going to were just insanity.
And then almost the opposite on, what would that be, Monday night, where it's like, oh man, Nuggets can't pull this game to within more than 10 until the very final 2 minutes.
Magic.
And what, they didn't lead until the end of the game before it was like 24-22 or something like that. Insane. So we'd love to see you at the bar, become a diehard, and get a little bit of a discount when you're at the bar. Okay, Jay, you teased a little video that we have here. These are the guys from the 33rd team who did work at PFF, so you probably know them from their very in-depth with the draft. And here's what both of them had to say about Q Robinson, which I think you're all going to like a lot.
Sleeper, Q Robinson from Alabama.
We have the same sleeper. Great.
You have him as your sleeper as well?
Yeah.
God damn it.
Because he's only played 340 snaps. That's like classic sleeper.
340-something snaps, but he is twitched up, explosive, originally recruited as a safety, and it's visible from the way he moves around. Like, that guy's insane. That tape looks as dynamic and athletic and as explosive as any edge rusher in this class. He's bendy. He's got that ability to run the hoop, turn the corner. I think you get day one juice as a situational rusher. He's got a long arm. He's got the ability to threaten the edge. He's got a nasty, like that inside swoop that Von Miller always had, where he's able to like set outside and then whoosh. Those three things alone gives him day one juice as a situational pass rusher. Like, dude, if we got to day 3 and that guy's available, I would be hammering the table to bring him in.
Shout out to Check the Mic for that. And they said Von Miller. We didn't say Von. This is a national show talking about Q Robinson. They both said he's the sleeper in the draft for them. And they said the Von Miller. Dre, the way they talked about him, it's like if he would have had 2 full seasons as a starter at Alabama, he didn't have to play behind Will Anderson. He didn't have to play behind all that talent at Alabama. It sounds like he could have been in consideration for a first-round pick.
Yeah, it's you see all the traits to have someone that checks off all those boxes at a premium position with premium size. Yeah, that screams someone you gamble on because they could pan out to be something really special. But then he doesn't go there because he is a little older. He wasn't able to test out at the combine with this nagging injury, and he never did have enough snaps to kind of put it all together, right? And I think in some ways, Bama was more relying on him to fill in all the other areas than just going after and rushing the passer. Because when he does rush the passer, he has the speed to power, he has the length, he has some moves, he has the bendiness, he has the twitch. That's a pretty noticeable profile. We talk about premium positions. We don't talk enough about premium traits. He's someone who has all those premium traits as well.
You know how when a fast receiver falls to the Chiefs in the draft, especially in the first or second round, the entire NFL is like, how did we let that happen? Why didn't X team pick him before the Chiefs were able to get him? And it's like, well, that stinks for the rest of the NFL. That's how teams should be feeling about the Broncos getting pass rushers right now, because the Broncos have 0 first-round picks in their front 7. But they just know how to identify and then use guys the right way and take a third-round pick in Zach Allen and make him an all-pro. They know how to take DJ Jones and make him great. They know how to take Nik Bonitto at the very last pick of the second round and make him an all-pro as well, a $25 million player, which he's going to be just like Zach Allen this year. This is how the NFL should feel.
Cooper in the 7th.
Cooper in the 7th.
Ellis's production as a second rounder, who was one of the youngest prospects of last year's draft, is incredible. I expect big things from him. George has really made this a priority of we will... Just like the Niners, and that DeMeco Ryans defense is built on depth up front with those edge rushers, keep coming to you in waves, which isn't necessarily a new concept. It's how Georgia and Bama and all those blue bloods dominate Ohio State. But then do it at the edge rush position in the NFL without ever adding that Nick Bosa or that first round blue chipper, and keep hammering away at day 2, day 3. And so far, so good. I mean, who knows? Tillman already was a contributor. That's a UDFA, I mean, Coop's getting $10 million a season. He's a 7th rounder.
Exactly.
Jeez.
And so that's why if I'm the NFL and I see George Payton make this pick and Q Robinson in the 4th, it's like, how did we not draft him in the 3rd? I'm kicking myself, and I'm thinking, man, did the Broncos really just get one of the steals of the draft? And my question, and would have been for the Check the Mike side, they said he brings day 1 juice from the edge. As
a pass rusher.
As a pass rusher, that's crazy if he really does do that. I'm a little skeptical on that.
I am too.
Fit with Denver, just because Nik Bonitto, Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Elliss. To your point, he was the only player who was 21 years old or younger to have 5 sacks last year. Dondre Tillman also had 5 sacks, but he was your 4th or 5th guy.
Crazy, right.
So it just gets buried. But it's just a combination of all of this depth and talent that hides a guy that gets 2 guys that get 5 sacks. But I'm telling you, if he brings true day 1 juice to the edge position and he is getting legitimate pass rush snaps for the Broncos day 1, week 1 this year, oh my gosh, that's going to be so bad for the NFL and so scary for quarterbacks in this league, because that's going to show you how good he is. Now, my expectations are way more calm for him than that.
Same.
But I still have to remind myself, he's a 4th-round pick. There is a lot of hope and potential for him. But for this year, and one of the things that the Broncos really pointed to, and you pointed to it, Dre, he was at Alabama, didn't play defense for the first 3 years, so he dominated on special teams. He can do it all on special teams. He's extremely willing. And so he's going to be a big-time special teams player this year. And then makes you wonder what kind of the vision is for him in 2026. Do they expect him to be their 4th pass rusher, their 3rd pass rusher? I am very curious about what they truly think about Q Robinson moving forward.
Me too. But the thing that's intriguing about these edge rushers we've talked about today, I think the first 3 picks for the Broncos we definitely feel like they went after safer profiles. Now, beauty's in the eye of the beholder with all three of those guys, right? So how you see upside in Barron, Bryant, RJ Harvey is kind of where their ultimate evaluation lied for you. Where you really got the upside is in Sai'vion and Q, but they also have these like safer archetypes that you wouldn't expect from more of your high upside guys who are usually more the small school guys, or, you know, it's a Q Robinson who maybe transferred from Alabama and did something big at a lesser school, or like just never put it together, but tested really good at the combine, which Q didn't have the ability to do, you know?
Right.
It's not typically these guys who their profiles are really safe,
right?
But then there's like, well, watch out, because if they hit this gear we know is there regularly, then you're talking about a totally different kind of profile and upside. So it's intriguing. It's I think the Broncos are onto something here. You know, I think we get a little addicted to hunting upside and not necessarily knowing what areas to go into.
Yeah.
And also it's like, dude, these are clean, good teammates. Like I do think Sean's made it a priority of like, this locker room with Bo Nix is going to be made of guys we can trust.
Yep.
Like we are avoiding head cases. And you know, maybe in 5-6 years when there's that head case staring you in the face and it's like, well, that could be our final piece.
Yep.
You might get back to that. But right now where you're building this young core, I think they're keeping it relatively safe off field, but also finding the ways to add margins in other areas.
And it's such a good point, Dre, because I would honestly think of a Sean Payton team not like that. I would think like Sean Payton, he knows how to run a team. He's going to keep guys in check. So he's not afraid to bring in guys
Alvin
like
Kamara is that.
Yeah, exactly. And no, Sean has gone after so many captains in this draft class, just like there were the past couple of years as well. So many guys that stayed in college for all 4 or 5 years. You mentioned it, first round pick. Barron, RJ Harvey, a senior last year. Q, Sai'vion, both guys that spent their entire college career in college and at that school. That's maybe the most surprising thing about the Sean Payton draft class is how much he really values character. And obviously that's a big thing with Bo as well. He had the most starts. You knew exactly the type of person and player you're getting. And that's not something I would have guessed when Sean Payton became the head coach here. Dre, do you think the Broncos carry 5, maybe even 6 outside linebackers this year?
I know. And that's where like put Sai'vion on the interior room, you can spare yourself a number.
Yep.
That's why Drew Sanders sticking at inside linebacker, save yourself another number. I mean, but yeah, it's that depth is getting sneaky.
And that's what the Broncos need. They need to improve their depth. And man, you improve your depth not in round 1. If you're drafting a backup in round 1 to improve your depth, that's bad news right there. Right. If you are drafting depth in hitting in rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, that's where you truly improve your depth moving forward. Because again, you hope to get to the point where you can't pay everyone, and you have to have guys leave. So you replenish by hitting on the Malcolm Roach types of free agents where it's $3 million and they pan out to be, a $7 million player, just like, in my opinion, Malcolm Roach has been, if not even worth more than that. And then it's also hitting these 3rd and 4th round guys so that when JFM, you can't pay him, that Sai'vion can step up right there. And man, when I think of Sai'vion, maybe not the exact same type of player, but I just think of the hope is Malik Jackson. Malik Jackson, a 5th round sort of guy, came in.
I love Malik Jackson.
Expectations weren't high for him when he was a rookie. And what did he do? He just developed into a damn good player. In fact, now he'd probably be getting paid $30 million a year. Like when he got 15 then, that was equivalent to like 30 now.
For sure.
And man, if Sai'vion could be anything like that, you pair that with Zach Allen, DJ Jones, the edge guys you have, Maybe Q Robinson in a couple years.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, these are guys who by the end of their rookie contracts, you're expecting not just important contributors, but guys who are sneakily competing for a starting job.
Yep, 100%. Dre, you don't have to compete for a starting job. You've always got a starting
This was a
job
blast,
on
brother.
this show. Dre is the absolute best, and you know what? We're going to run it back tomorrow, and Dre noticed something that was totally off my radar, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow. And I think it's really encouraging for the Broncos and also maybe a little scary. Encouraging and scary. How do those two things work together? The doctor is going to diagnose it tomorrow and tell us on the show. 11 a.m. Plus, we're going to be joined by our guy, Brian Baldinger. Shout out to everyone tuning in. Hit us with a thumbs up on the way out. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow on the DNVR Broncos Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.